Hi, my name is Sheila Chiamaka Chukwulozie. I am an artist originally from the eastern side of Nigeria. I live in Lagos and I make my work in Lagos and using all the different influences that I find on my different travels. My practice has graduated. I began my practice just looking at the body as a machine in itself, like looking at the system of the body and looking at intergenerational traumas as kind of glitches in the system. And so trying to recode the body to basically accept the life that I think it deserves. And currently, I think that practice is really looking at rest as a way, like as a medicine, and looking at ways of healing the body through whatever information that it receives from the external world, be it through visual, which is why film is really important to me, because I think film is really just the modern way of storytelling that used to happen under the moonlight. So those stories helped people recognize who they are and who their ancestors have been. And so my films aim to do the same thing. The majors is the film component of 1111, which is the bigger installation. 1111, I think, is the concept that holds the majors, which is a film about a hero or heroine, but saying heroine is always complicated. The film is about a hero who wakes up at no particular hour, but at the right time still, and discovers herself alone in this new world. And she has no map, she has no manual, but somehow life comes to her as she goes towards life. And she figures out that basically her moment is about experiencing all these different things that she never knew. It's basically about exploring what you didn't know through space and time. It's based on tarot cards. There are 78 cards in a complete suite. But the majors is about the first 22 cards, which are called the major arcana. The major arcana starts from 0, which is the Fool, and ends at 21, which is the World. So this is about her journey through all those different people, but instead of thinking of them as 22 different people, it's interesting to think of them as just different states, the masculine and the feminine. So in the film, instead of having 22 different people play all the characters, I have just 3 people in total. One person as the Fool throughout the film, and then 2 other people as the different characters, just representing energies. Because the idea of tarot is, even if you have the Fool, or let's say you pull a card and that card is the Emperor, it doesn't mean that you are always the Emperor. It just means that you are in a condition in which you have to make decisions as the Emperor, and the information that you might have needed to make such a decision, you may have inquired or you may have acquired by being the Fool at one point. So it's just about people go through different stages in life, rather than different people are just different the whole time. It's like we're all on a carousel and we're meeting each other or missing each other, but there are always people on the same time as us, and there are other people on different times. So it plays with this question of who's wrong or who's right or who's late or who's early. So 1111 is this I want to say mathematical concept of alignment. I think the idea of just a number or a time in the clock, in the 12-hour clock or the 24-hour clock, where all the numbers in the sequence are just straight lines. Even if you can have 22, 22 or 33, 33, they're full of curves and everything. But 1111 is just such a, architecturally, it's something that puts one in order. It makes you feel like the time is right, just by a feeling aesthetically, and which allows me sort of like explore the concept of 1111, which is something it's been popularized, let's say, by this generation. I feel, I don't know, it's one of those questions where it's like, has it been popularized by this generation, or is it just something that it's our time to find out now? Like, it's something that other people, it's been a technology, a spiritual technology that other people have used in their lives. Because even there are lots of things that have happened at 1111, which is what was interesting, because I named it 1111, and so I just started looking what actually is, like, what other interesting things have happened at 1111. And I think the U.S. Army ended the war. What war is this? It's a very popular war. Now it's slipping, not the Vietnam one, the one on the sea. It has a really nice name. Pearl Harbor. Yes, yes, on 11/11, like the 11th day. I don't know if it's the 11th month, but at the 11th hour, the fire had ended. So it's one of those things where there's a very thin line between coincidence and a causality that we don't know. I think it's this portal. It's a portal in time that so many fascinating things have happened, that at least I think a question as to what that number means, like what kind of story it tells, is important to ask. Like, personally in my life, there have been interesting things that have happened, and I look at my phone and it's 11:11, and I'm like, this could just be the time. I mean, I've looked at the time at 13:14, but right now that I'm feeling this particular way and this has happened, it's on 11:11. So I think it's just, it's about this place. It encompasses the space in my life where I'm more willing to accept magic just being math I don't know how to calculate. So the components and the materials that I've used in the installation are all biodegradable. Everything, except one thing, I think. But everything in the installation has been very carefully chosen for its ability to go back into the earth, into any earth, regardless. So it's red sand, it's beach sand, the borders are made of wood, the stands are tree trunks, or just all things that look like raw materials. Because for me, I think sometimes there's a misconception that the future abandons the past, but I don't think that that's true. I think the future contains the past. It's really futuristic to think of a world where all there is just all that there's ever been. There's nothing created. It just, I think it's funny how hard we work to build the world as it has been in the beginning. It's like we think that we can build ourselves into something that already was built or has been built. So I think for me, it's such an interesting play on things to bring this idea of magic as nature, because I think nature is quite magical. I think whatever people call magic, it usually means they just don't understand it. They don't know how it happened. And I think even just being alive, waking up, I didn't say this earlier, but this is a very important component. So 11:11 is the idea of divine timing, is also very tied closely to an Igbo saying that we have, where is whenever one wakes up, that is their morning. So whenever you wake up, it's not everyone wake up at 5 a.m. or everyone, you can't tell someone else when their time to wake up is. You just have to wait till it's their time. And when it's their time, they will be the ones to know. They will be the ones to have the experience. So it's like a biological clock, but not just in response to women and their time to give birth, but everybody has a biological clock that ticks where, and I'm sure everybody feels it in their life, where you feel like how you woken up today is very different from how you went to sleep last night. and you're not sure what it is. And it's not one particular time, but they're just moments that come like waves, which is why the film as well is in a loop. Because even if it happens now, that doesn't mean that it won't happen again. It will happen again, but you just don't know when, you just don't know how. My mom is an avid, seasoned storyteller. So in Nigeria, we have these power cuts, basically, where the National Electricity Board decides that we've had enough electricity and we can do with less, so they take it. I don't know what they do with it, but they take it. And while we're in the dark, I think my mom just took it as an opportunity to tell us stories, to lighten, to distract us from the fact that there was no light. And those stories have always, because the stories always have songs and the stories are call and response. So a performer and the audience both have performative responsibilities. As an audience member, you have to respond to earn the story, which encourages the storyteller to tell the story. So growing up, I've always maybe believed in magic, just because I've always had a rich imagination, I think, which started from this concept of a tortoise being able to speak, or a rabbit being able to win a race, and it being able to sing a song. So there are all these fantastic, which I could call now anthropomorphic ways that Igbo people tend to understand themselves. I think we use fables to put some distance between us and our world. Because if you say, oh, human beings are greedy, it's easy to find an excuse for why we're not greedy. But if you say, okay, so look at what the tortoise did to the elephant, it's easier for people to say, oh yeah, that tortoise was greedy. And then if you fill in the blank, like who is the tortoise in your life, you usually get to an answer. So it's always been such a lovely way to hear about life and its consequences and its movements, and not feel attacked, but just feel like there is a moral lesson that isn't just like, you will be punished if you do this, or you'll be punished if you do that. It's actually, this is what happened, and you can enjoy in this moment, but the chickens will come home to roost. So I've always loved the idea of being able to pass a message of value through aesthetic beauty, something that is resonant, so that it doesn't feel painful to make the right decision. I really want it to be easy to make the right decision, because it's nice when it's beautiful to do right. Well, my advice would be that if you can, do take off your shoes. I know that it's winter, but if you can, take off your shoes and experience the texture of everything. I think everything in the space, unlike most shows in a gallery, you're advised not to touch. But in this, I think you're advised to touch. I would want to see some human interaction. Me and we were joking downstairs, actually, that it feels like that is the space for the last human, because it's when you hear like digital, you hear it feels quite steely, it feels quite cold. But in that room, the digital is not something you can't reach. It's something that you probably have forgotten, or something that you have abandoned. So I'd advise you to take advantage of the time to remember that you can play, you can put your hand in the sand, you can listen to the clock, you can listen to the water, that the things in your future are actually in your present.